Welcome back, pro wrestling fans. Welcome back, IWC. It's me. It's me. It's the GOC. Coming to you live to tape, 25 feet below the surface of the earth for a special edition of Chaos Corner and a different book review that we're doing here today in the dog days of summer. It's August 1st, 2023, and you're with the GOC. Now, you guys know that I'm big on pro wrestling books, pro wrestling stories. Of course, I have many to tell myself, but I'm here for a special show today. This past weekend, I was at the class of 2023 New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. You fans know, if you follow me, I was inducted in the class of 2019. And also this past weekend at the Crown Plaza in Warwick, Rhode Island, was Fan Fest 8. An unbelievable time, an extravaganza, a bonanza filled with superstars, everyone from Kane to Devon Dudley to Lisa Marie Verone, aka Victoria, Candice Michelle, Nia Jax, Funaki, Ultimo Dragon, Rhino, Joel Gertner, Dr. D, David Schultz. The list goes on. And of course, I was set up courtesy of the Pro Wrestle Zone and the Professor Rick Del Santo at his booth, at his table, signing autographs. It was an unbelievable event, fans. Let's hope we can do it again. And of course, an honor at the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. And I ran into a gentleman that I wanted to meet for quite some time. We do know of each other. Listen, he's a pretty famous guy. He's an unbelievable podcaster. He's quite the author, and we're here today to start off a book review for Mr. Brian Solomon, Blood and Fire, the unbelievable real-life story of wrestling's original Sheik. You're not going to want to miss this one, fans. Come on back off of all the other social media. Meet me here on YouTube. All right, fans, now that we're off all the other social media platforms, welcome back to Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter, which is now X, at Big Daddy GOC. And the GOC stands for the Guardian of Chaos. You can catch me there in real time. On Instagram, it's the Guardian of Chaos. I have 2 accounts on Facebook. That's right, there's 2. J Brony, that's right, Jabroni, J Brony, and Prodigio Fidelis El Guardian. Follow me on Gitter, Gab, Truth Social, Rumble. I cover it all in the IWC. Fans, you're not going to want to miss this particular book review. I'm probably going to do it in a couple of different parts, 2 or 3 parts. Listen, it's an unbelievable read. It's an amazing book. And I believe Brian has a book he's working on now about the legendary Gorilla Monsoon. Fans, research Brian Solomon. You can listen to him on Arcadian Vanguard, on all his social media platforms. He's an unbelievable author and writer. And to meet him finally, after all this time of reading his books and being able to follow each other on social media, it was a pleasure and an honor to meet Mr. Solomon. Knowledgeable, intelligent, respectful, knows what he's talking about. One of the best conversations I had at FanFest. So we're going to quickly go through the foreword, which is by RVD, Rob Van Dam. The whole fucking show, so to speak. So let's start off with the preliminaries. Come on back, because we're going to do this in several different parts. Blood and Fire, the original Sheik with Brian Solomon. Grab a beverage, grab a snack, and listen to the GOC. Let's see what we can start off with. And of course, it has the notable book seal on it. It doesn't get any more professional and better than that. Can't thank you enough, Brian. It was a pleasure. Let's see what we can start off with here to get you fans ready for the book review. I'll do the introduction, I'll do the foreword, and here is the author's note. More than anything, the Sheik was known for his strict adherence to kayfabe. That's right, something a lot of people don't know about here in 2023. or even in the last decade or two, when kayfabe was alive. That's what made the business. Professional wrestling's time-honored code of secrecy for all you geeks and dweebs and nerds, and that's what kayfabe is. You guys know that. If you're a follower here on my channel, you know what kayfabe means to the business. No one protected his persona or lived his gimmick more than the Iron Sheik. Well, not the Iron Sheik, the original Sheik. And then, of course, there was the Iron Sheik, who was the offshoot of the original. At least that's the way I understand it to be. And no one worked harder to keep his personal life away from the ring, secret from the fans. Because of this, it goes without saying that writing a biography of the man would be formidable an undertaking. And perhaps this is part of the reason why none has ever been published or even attempted with any success for the original Sheik. In order to do what had never been done before, I made every effort to delve as deeply as I could into research. Now, this is Brian Solomon talking. Not just into his professional career, but his actual life, to find out who the real Edward Farhat was, the Sheik's real name. As with any biography, research and interviews made up the most important part of the process. And I think I was able to put together as complete a picture as I could with the tools at my disposal, and thanks to the scores of people who knew and worked closely with him, who were willing to speak to me. Again, Brian Solomon, the author's note. The one element that eluded me throughout the process was direct participation from the living members of the immediate Farhat family, who declined to take part despite my best efforts to include them. While this did not surprise me, given I had already been familiarized with the reclusive nature and dedication to protecting the Sheik's legacy, it did disappoint me, as it would have undoubtedly provided an even more complete picture than what you now hold in your hands. Let's continue, fans. Nevertheless, I fully respect their decision and the reasons behind it. I must also acknowledge that this project came along at a time of great suffering and loss in the family, as both of the Sheik's sons passed away before it was complete. I had been in touch with Eddie Farhat Jr. in the early stages of the writing process, and while there was definitely reticence, is that a word? If Brian Solomon put it in his book, then it's a word, and I'm a college graduate. I'm as confused as a baby at Hooters right now on that one. I did sense he was on the verge of relenting a bit when suddenly he was faced with the unthinkable loss of his brother. We lost contact after that, and any hopes for his changing his mind ended with his own tragic passing less than 6 months later. Think about what Brian had to go through with this book. That said, I have chosen to take a very transparent approach to the narrative of this story. These are the areas that remain mysteries, and I will indicate when that is the case, to quote Brian Solomon. These are the areas where the truth is still a bit unclear, and I will also indicate when that is the case. In some instances, the Sheik was so successful in kayfabing people that there are some indisputable facts I've uncovered that contradict the accepted timeline of his life as it currently stands. This necessitates a direct first-person style rather than the omniscient narration, as I'm doing, that is typical of most biographies. In other words, I intend to be completely upfront with you, the reader, that's me, about what I know and what I don't know, and also how I know what I know. I believe this to be the best way to honor the Sheik's legacy, while also telling the most complete and truthful story I can. I stand by the work I've done as the best possible summation of the man's life, given the resources and living witnesses available to me. Here's a quick quote, if you will, from the legendary Terry Funk. You guys already know my history with the Funker. We don't have to go through it. We're here to talk about Brian Solomon. Quote, Terry Funk. People say that wrestling isn't real. Well, somebody forgot to tell that son of a bitch as he talks about the Sheik. Funk and the Sheik. Go back and check it out on YouTube, fans. Now, here's the foreword. Now, remember, the foreword was written by Rob Van Dam, Mr. Monday Night, ECW legend, whatever you want to call RVD. Being part of the Sheik's clan earned us a lot of respect from the boys while we were coming up. Now, remember, RVD teaming with Sabu, and we know the relationship between the Sheik and the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal Sabu. Kick back, fans. You're not going to want to miss this. My first 2 or 3... Now, this is Rob Van Dam talking. My first 2 or 3 years in the business, introductions were met with a special look in people's eyes. There was a tight group of 5 of us that had the honor of beating the crap out of each other in the Sheik's ring. Tom, George, Dango, myself, and Sabu. A few other wrestlers would pass through, often never returning or showing up once every 3 months, comparing us to safer schools. That's how we realized we wrestled much, much stiffer than, well, everybody else. One of our first shows was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Dango and I had a tag team match against a couple of young guys that were acrobatic like us and had some really cool moves. Before our match, everybody thought it'd be a good idea to rib our opponents and tell them that we thought everything was real and they better be careful. I'm guessing that after a few of our slams and kicks, they believed it was true because very early in the match, our opponent surprised us by not kicking out on the random pin to end the chances of anyone getting hurt. There was no getting hurt in the ring for Sheik's boys. While training, when one of us complained that we needed to stop and take a few minutes to shake something off, Sheik would tell us that he was stabbed in the leg in Puerto Rico by a crazy fan and continued the match. We were always amazed at his stories, and we loved hearing them. What an incredible read. While we sat around the dinner table after training to hear those legendary stories from the Sheik, it felt like we were part of a significant group of very few select people. We were a family. Still, Sheik kept us all of us, constantly intimidated. Even Sabu. I remember trying to peek over Sheik's shoulder in the locker room before a show in Vermont in 1991. He wanted to see what was Sheik's mysterious briefcase, and he had it partway open on his lap while he sat in a folding chair. As we clipped up over, closer to peek inside, unnoticed, he slammed the case in while snapping around toward us, yelling, "What are you looking at? What are you looking at?" We ran like little kids. Later that night, Sheik wrestled Abdullah the Butcher, and the match called for an entire locker room to run out. Once again, let me refer to Bully Ray and what he said to me years ago. Give the Guardian of Chaos 5 spots. He'll fuck up 4 of them. I'm proud of that. I really am. Afterward, all the boys came back surprised. They didn't realize they had been cut, and throughout, the blood belonged to someone else. That's unbelievable. Sabu and I decided to stay away from everyone out there because we knew what to expect. They didn't realize they had been cut and thought, as I said, the blood belonged to someone else. I had to reread that. You guys know that. They all got sliced by Sheik, or the Butcher, or both. Same 2 blades for the entire locker room. Not good. When Abby came back from the chaos, pun intended, he was pissed and yelled at me and Sabu because we came out to avoid the melee. On the floor, we hit the ring and started doing high spots. It's funny to think of how inconsiderate that was of us and how pissed Abby was. I didn't think Sheik saw us in the ring. Again, this is RVD, Rob Van Dam, quoting RVD for the foreword of the book here by Brian Solomon about the life and times of the Sheik. His words and his teachings will always stick with me. Still, I didn't realize how little I knew about my mentor until reading Brian Solomon's Blood and Fire. In fact, the only time I remember him showing a soft side was when his granddaughter, Susie, was visiting. He loved her so much and he was so warm and inviting to her. It was almost embarrassing for us, like we shouldn't have had access to this side of him. Kayfabe, remember? He would almost be in baby talk mode, kind of like how I am with my granddaughter, who's 5 years old today. Happy birthday, Mila Bree. 5, who knew? He was so happy, but I don't remember ever feeling comfortable enough to joke with him about it or anything like that. Blood and Fire gives us such an extensive look at the most original wrestler to grace the industry and the most important man of my career. I learned so much about his business journeys and his personal life too. I find it incredibly interesting to learn what is happening in Sheik's life when our paths crossed. It's incredible that no one has ever written a book about Sheik, but I'm so glad because no one could have done what Brian Solomon accomplished. It's so well written. It's an enjoyable read while at the same time delivering astounding numbers and facts such as dates, addresses, tickets sold, and wrestlers' fees. If there's more than one version of a story, Brian will give them all to you. The immense amount of research that was put into this book is apparent on every page all the way through. Knowing Sheik more now as I do, I have a greater understanding of what parts of me he built. Wow. He gave me the mindset to raise the bar in the industry and in life. I also see so much more of him in Sabu than I did before in different areas of life. I'm thankful for this book, and I hope many people enjoy it as much as I do. To quote RVD, Rob Van Dam. That's a damn good forward. Pun intended again. I'm going to go back to the back page of the book to read a couple of news notes and quotes from several luminaries in the world of pro wrestling. Bear with me, fans. We're coming up on almost 20 minutes. I have never learned more about any pro wrestler from any single book than I did from the tour de force that is Blood and Fire. The veil of secrecy the Sheik shrouded his life and career in has been lifted by Brian Solomon's painstaking research. A book on pro wrestling's most mysterious figure has never been attempted. Now that one has finally been written, it could never be followed. Like its subject, this book is one of a kind. Wrestling fans should read it twice. Quote, Jim Cornette. The most believable heel in the history of pro wrestling. The Sheik took kayfabe to the grave. The story of the wrestler fans feared most is one of the best wrestling bios ever. Quote, John Arezzi. The Sheik was the godfather of hardcore wrestling. Unlike every other mythical character or movie monster, Sheik was very real. And when he performed, you were watching real-life horror. The myth or legend of the original Sheik, Ed Farhat, is all true. Welcome to his next bloodbath. Proceed with caution. Quote, Tommy Dreamer. He captured the imagination of a generation conquering the wrestling business and lost it all. The most vicious, bloodthirsty villain in the history of the ring. For decades, he drew record crowds everywhere. He went and left a trail of burned and bloody opponents in his wake. He was the Sheik, The mysterious and terrifying madman from Syria, whose wanton destruction and mayhem are the stuff of wrestling legend. But what those legion of fans screaming for his head never knew was that the Sheik was really Eddie Farhat from Lansing, Michigan, the son of Arab immigrants. Farhat proudly served in World War II and fulfilled the American dream through tireless dedication to his craft. And when he wasn't screaming unintelligibly, kind of like the GOC right now, and attacking his enemies with sharp objects, he was busy being the owner and operator of Worldwide Sports, one of the most successful wrestling companies in North America. This is Blood and Fire, the unbelievable real-life story of wrestling's original Sheik. Brian R. Solomon, to give you a little background, is an educator and the author of several books on sports and entertainment. He is a regular contributor to Pro Wrestling Illustrated and Inside the Ropes, and the co-host of the PWI podcast. For 7 years, he was a writer and editor for the WWE. He is the proud father of 3 and lives in Connecticut with his wife, youngest son, and Boston Terrier. Some pretty interesting quotes from some very amazing stars in the world of professional wrestling. Let me flip back a little bit here on Chaos Corner. And just before we go on to the next part of Brian Solomon's incredible book, the contents are headed for the money, down from the mountaintop, growing up Farhat, forged in the flames of war, stepping into the ring. Enter the Arabian madman. The Sheik goes national. Motor City mayhem. Big time. On top of the wrestling world. The battle for Detroit. Nihan no Shiku. I like to hurt people. The death of big-time wrestling. Wanderer in the wilderness. Once more into the fire. The last days of the Sheik, a legacy written in blood. The Sheik's record at Cobo Arena in Detroit from 1962 to 1988. The Sheik's 127-match undefeated singles streak at the Maple Leaf Gardens from 1969 to 1974. So fans, come on back. We're going to do this into a bunch of different parts and put it on the Guardian of Chaos YouTube channel, book reviews. This is an unbelievable read. Brian Solomon, Blood and Fire, the unbelievable real-life story of wrestling's original Sheik. Come on back to Chaos Corner for all the mayhem. Don't you dare miss it. Well, come on back, man. I'm just getting started.